Thank you for waking us all up out here.
For all you do. And
thank you for giving us the voice.
For being out there helping to keep the constitutional republic.
I want to thank you for
your support for veterans in the military.
Educating us.
Standing up for conservatism.
Giving us the truth.
Daybreak with Drew Steele.
All right, Congressman Byron Donalds coming up in just a second. Before we get to him, I just want to address this because I think it's very important. I walk in here in the studio, kind of hanging out this morning. I get here early in the 4 o'clock hour. I'm hanging out. Why are you shaking your head? You're like, Jake's like, I still don't know how you do that.
I don't.
I get in here in the 4 o'clock hour. I'm hanging out. All of a sudden, I look down at my phone. You couldn't help but notice what was going on because not only was the phone shaking, but it was buzzing and ringing. And I'm like, well, what is this? That's odd. All right. Congressman Byron Donalds joining us on Daybreak 92.5 Fox News. First of all, how are you this morning, sir?
I'm all right.
Yeah. Okay, good.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah, I know there's a lot going on. Before I get to some of the bigger issues, obviously Speaker McCarthy and talking about the budget and the issues with what we're going to do with the debt ceiling, and the like, and some other issues that I want to get to. I have to tell you, there was a piece of audio that I'm going to play that I thought was remarkable that happened just the other day. And I guess maybe you'll give us the backstory after I play the clip, because you're there. The SEC chair Gensler is there. He's trying to explain a couple of different things that you'll explain in just a second. But then you brought up something that I have to play this clip, and I was like, "You did not go there." Yes, you did. Yes, you did. In what was it with the Financial Services Committee hearing? Let me just play this clip and then give a little bit of backstory because this was remarkable. Hold on.
Hey, real quick, last question. I think it might have came up. You were Hillary Clinton's CFO in the campaign, right?
It's part of my history.
Were you? Yes or no?
In 2016.
Did you facilitate the payment for the Steele dossier since you were CFO of the Hillary Clinton campaign?
Sir.
Yes or no?
Sir.
Yes or no?
That was not.
You're under oath, Chairman Gensler. Yes or no?
I know. I was not something I was aware of.
Yes, you did. And yes, he did. And wow, that to me was kind of explosive, wasn't it? It should be a pretty simple answer to give. Can you give a little bit of backstory on what was happening there, what you were talking about even before you brought that up?
Well, we had a hearing with Gary Gensler, who's the commissioner for the SEC. A little bit of backstory. Gary Gensler is using authority Congress never gave him, frankly, to try to put in these ESG disclosures on every publicly traded company. He just came out with a 500-page climate disclosure rule that most companies are like, what? I have to disclose all this stuff about climate change, which has no bearing on the financial operations of the company. He's broadly abused his power. And so these are things going on with him.
Right.
The other thing, as we've been looking into him and his practices are, one, the morale at SEC is the worst of all the agencies. He basically grinds people into a pulp to try to move at fever pitch all the radical left woke policies through the SEC to force corporate America to comply. But he also was the CFO for the Hillary Clinton campaign in 2016. And, if you're the CFO, the chief financial officer, something would tell me that you knew that the money went out for the fake dossier, which was tampering with an election back in 2016 and unleashed one of the largest witch hunts in American history with respect to all the Russia Mueller probe stuff.
Yep.
That was basically the first 2 years of Donald Trump's presidency.
Yeah. And he, under oath, certainly didn't answer the question. I'm wondering if you opened up a door here, because my initial reaction is not giving an answer that was satisfactory, number one. And number two, another place to go and look. And I'm sorry, but I can't forget that. I cannot forget what happened with the dossier. I cannot forget about the weaponization of the federal government against an American citizen, let alone a sitting president. I can't forget about that. I can't let that go. And so anything and everything that we can do to continue to get to the bottom of it and to expose it. I mean, obviously we're already at the bottom. We know what happened, but to expose it even deeper and more so people can see. It's the It's the sunlight as the disinfectant. It's how elections are going to flip and change, and things are going to change even in the future. I might bring that up because people have common sense. They're just starting to discover things they didn't realize before, and I think now they want these answers.
The one thing I want to stress to you is that I cannot state it strongly enough how much you have aspects of the federal government that have been weaponized against the American people. The last 3 years, let's just take that, we had many agencies who directly engaged in suppressing information that I believe was vital to the American people, vital to their decision-making process. That definitely occurred. You had elements of the FBI and DOJ who were suppressing information during the 2020 presidential election that I believe was critical to that election. That's election tampering. So, we've talked about Alvin Bragg before, but this knucklehead in New York is talking about, an NDA with Stormy Daniels that shaped the 2016 election. No, it really didn't, and nobody cared. But the outright suppression of information in the 2020 election absolutely influenced the 2020 election. Yeah. Bring that into what's happening right now. This broke last night. It's being covered this morning. CNN and MSNBC are talking about all the different incidents of shootings in the country because what they don't want to talk about is the fact that there is now a whistleblower who has come forward who basically is saying that there are political decisions being made in the Department of Justice to slow walk and to minimize the investigation into Hunter Biden and the business dealings of the Biden family, all surrounding Joe Biden. Drew, I was at the Treasury Department on Monday. We were reviewing financial documents. I was reading the financial documents, literally the chain of wire transfers from Chinese holding companies into subsidiaries, into businesses, LLCs owned by Jim Biden and Hunter Biden, into either transfers or cashier's checks to different members of the family. This has all been going on. We have a president of the United States who is compromised, and this is disgusting. And you have the big media and you have agencies that are covering this stuff up. So this whistleblower that has just come forward, that's going to be a big thing that's going on. And that's just the Hunter Biden stuff. There's more stuff going on.
Yeah. And listen, Congressman, people are going to ask you, what are you going to do about it? What can we do about it? How do we explain to the American people how horrific this is, how bad this is for the country, a president that is compromised, so many things that you can only imagine what has happened and could happen, and that something has to change, that this is not, we're not even talking about political elections that are going to be coming up in 24, for example, and trying to get a strong footing on where we want to be and changing that. But how right now, as we speak, this minute, there are things tangible that we need to be worried about where change has to happen, because that's what people look at. Like, where's the talk of impeachment? Where's that discussion? Why be afraid of that is what people will say to me.
Well, no, I don't think anybody's really afraid of it. But what I've always said since we took the majority in the House is we're going to go through the process and do all the investigations and have all the evidence.
Right.
And then if impeachment is the next step, we're going to lay that out. The difference between us and what the Democrats did is that some phone call, by the way, was leaked. The Ukrainian phone call, I think it was 2019 now, that was leaked to the press, which, by the way, was a violation of the Espionage Act because that was a classified call between the president and a foreign national. They leaked that to the press. The Democrats were like, oh, my gosh, pay for play. You got to impeach him. They went and impeached, went nowhere in the Senate. The second impeachment was truly ridiculous. The incitement of an insurrection, when none of the investigative work was even done, Nancy Pelosi just went straight to the podium. We're not going to do, I just want to be clear with everybody, we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
We're going to go through the full process and investigate everything. One side note, because if you want to talk about grounds for impeachment, I was in an oversight hearing yesterday. We had the Inspector General for Afghanistan in the hearing. The Inspector General for Afghanistan stated under oath, and by the way, I questioned him and the other Inspector Generals, the Inspector General at the State Department, the Inspector General at USAID, and all three of them confirmed that the Biden administration, the Department of State, and the United States USAID, that they are all in complete violation, willful violation of the law with respect to complying with an inspector general, basically the watchdog of the federal agencies. They are openly obstructing the Afghanistan IG's investigation into the withdrawal of Afghanistan and the aftermath of Afghanistan. We have emails demonstrating that State Department employees have been told from higher ups to no longer communicate with the Inspector General. This has not happened before, and it's all happening under Joe Biden. So we're going to continue that process, continue these investigations, and this isn't glib talk on TV.
Trying to think of what else. Oh boy, there's so much I want to ask you about. Is there anything else that you specifically wanted to touch on? Because I've got all kinds of things and places I could go.
Well, you can drive it. If you wanted to touch the debt ceiling, we could talk about that. Actually,
yeah. Let me ask about that. Go ahead. Yeah. So maybe give me your thoughts on what the Limit, Save, and Grow Act of 23 there. What has been unveiled by the speaker, and your thoughts on that. How do you feel about it?
Well, first, the product that the speaker released is something where all Republicans had a lot of buy-in. We've been meeting about this for about 2.5 months, getting members together, convening sessions, talking different policy points. From people I've talked to who've been on the Hill for a long time, this is the strongest, most conservative approach to actually getting our spending under control, using debt ceiling as an ability to do that, while also responsibly raising the nation's debt. I want to be very clear. We're going to have to figure a way to raise the debt ceiling, because the trajectory of spending in Washington, D.C., we all know is unsustainable. And we have to have breathing room in order to do all the necessary reforms in the years to come to get spending under control so we can actually have a plan to pay down debt and get the house on order.
Yep.
What we've done here, we have REINS Act in this bill, which has actually put guardrails around the federal agencies from a regulatory process. We put in H.R. 1, which is domestic energy production. We repeal all the Green New Deal subsidies from the Inflation Reduction Act, that terrible bill. We get rid of the the $30 billion climate bank. We get rid of the student loan bailout. We get rid of the $80 billion going to the IRS. And we claw back the unobligated, unspent COVID-19 money.
Huge.
And then we also put we put our spending caps into this, which will be year 2022 spending caps. What that means is that non-defense discretionary spending will go down to 2019 spending levels, 2019. And then you will be able to carry defense at around 2023 spending levels to keep defense flat. We all know why, because China and Russia is on the move and our military needs to be prepared. That's the framework of the deal. And we raise the debt ceiling into next year. What this does is that this actually first gets back to pre-pandemic spending levels. We put necessary controls on government. We begin to decrease the discretionary spending levels. So the first things to go are all these woke programs that have seeded into all aspects of the federal government. Now, Joe Biden doesn't want to negotiate anything. So where this is going to go now, we believe we're going to get the votes to push this through next week. Is going to go to the Senate, and in the Senate is going to have to make a decision on what do they want to do. Do they just want to sit and run out the clock, or do they want to have something come back to the House of Representatives? We'll see what they do. But I want the American people to understand, Joe Biden does not want to debate. He does not want to negotiate. He wants to run the clock out to the 11th hour. So some crap deal has to run across, and then they're going to try to jam Republicans on voting for it.
Yeah.
I am telling you right now, there are many House Republicans, and when I say many, it's more than that, who are not going to be voting for just some clean last-minute debt ceiling deal because Joe Biden is a terrible president.
Right. Good. And to stand up for that and explain why. And when you've already presented something like this, and you have another side that doesn't even want to talk about it, then there's that. There's a problem there. And so anything that happens after the fact, you can stand up and defend because you've already put the work in when it comes to this. And so nobody can make it seem as if you're the one. I mean, they're going to do it. I mean, obviously they're going to run to the media and they're going to make it seem like Republicans, they want to throw who off the cliff, that kind of thing. But that's to be expected.
Oh, yeah,
anyway.
I know. The press started yesterday. They were like, "Oh my gosh, do you think the Senate's going to balk at this? What do you think?" I was like, "Well, then the Senate should sit down and do some work because we've been doing our work."
Right.
And at the end of the day, Drew, I'm like, "Look, this is common sense stuff."
Yep.
We went through the pandemic era. We understand that the federal government spent $6 trillion in the current year. $6 trillion. We raised in taxes $4.5 trillion. We just spent $6 trillion. I remember when Barack Obama was putting out $4 trillion budgets, and in Washington, everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, how could you spend this kind of money?" If we went back to Barack Obama budgets, we would have a surplus today. Like, keep that in mind, okay?
Yeah.
So all we're saying is let's go back to pre-pandemic spending level. COVID is over. Even the president's now said that. COVID's over. Let's go back to pre-COVID spending. That's common sense stuff.
Yep.
The reporter's looking at me like, well, is that really common sense?
Right.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
That's common sense.
Yep.
Let's do that.
Congressman Byron Donald is joining us on Daybreak 92.5 Fox News. All right, my friend. I appreciate you. We'll talk next week. Thanks
All
so
right.
much.
See you, Drew.
See you. It's Daybreak 92.5 Fox News. Top 5 audio clips of the day up next.
92.5 Fox News. Right all along.